Hey team, Richard Greer here. Welcome to the Crater Room Ultra 2024 Season 1, Episode 2, brought to you by Teamcp Media, your endurance coaching specialist. We're excited tonight to bring the Episode 2 of the Crater Room Ultra podcast for 2024. In this particular episode, we're going to chat all around nutrition with special guest Marewa Sutherland, who's going to help us figure out a bit of a nutrition strategy, ultimately for race day is what we're on about. We want to know what you need to do to fuel your body to make sure that you can perform to your potential. We're going to also discuss training intensity and how do we make the most of each training session to ensure you're ready for race day, but hopefully not overcooked at the same time. And we're also going to have a chat to special guest Megan Ryan, who's lining up for her first crack at the 30K Ultra, and is also has got a pretty awesome motivation for turning up and actually doing that as well. But before we go too deep into the show, we need to bring on our comments man, Grant Guys. How are you getting on, Grant?
Yeah, good, Richard. Yourself?
Yeah, real good, thanks. Hey, a Teamcp coach, you're also a pretty handy runner. You've won the 30K in the past, the Bellbird Buster, so know what the course is about. So hopefully going to help share some of your thoughts and what it takes to go and get the most out of your race day.
Yeah. Hopefully there's something there for folks from my experience from a while ago now. But yeah, also kind of curious on the nutrition side of it, because it's something as a running coach, we get asked a lot, and I'm always thinking, well, I can tell you what I've done, but I'm not a nutritionist, so it'll be good to get the right information to pass on to athletes rather than just my own experience, I guess.
Yeah. You we mentioned that you've won the 30K, which is pretty awesome. But there was a rumor around that you might be almost making a comeback on the running trails. Did I see 52 in there? Is that what I heard?
You definitely wouldn't have. No,
I wouldn't have, and it wouldn't be good to put that live out to the world at the moment either, would it?
Definitely not that. That would be 50K. Yeah, that would be a big commitment for an old man that doesn't really run much. So yeah. That would be amazing. I would love to get back into running that far, but we'll see. We'll see how inspired I get from this evening, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I guess that's a good question actually, just to kick off with. In regards to training and turning up to race day, how much is it in training, and how much is it about event experience and how to pace yourself and look after yourself in an event like this?
Well, yeah, I think if I think back to when I first got into running, and it was super important that at least for me, that I had done, like, maybe not the whole distance, but really close to that distance. Say I remember when I did the Kepler, like, I was really nervous about that distance, about the course. Like, it was really, like, almost obsessive about it. And now, like, because I have that, or did maybe have that confidence of, okay, I can run the distance. I'm kind of happy with, I might not nail my nutrition, but, like, there's a bit of a bullseye. So if I don't nail it, I know I've got, plan B and C and D. There's all those things that you have in the toolbox that you can pull out when you're more experienced. So I think you can kind of wing it a little bit more. Maybe not wing 50K off the couch as you're trying to coax me into, but 30K or 20K. Like, you can lean on that experience, and that might just be the experience of knowing not to go out too fast.
That's right. It's your pacing.
Yeah,
and knowing when those twinges, what those twinges are feeling like as they're starting to feel like crap. You know what that feels like, rather than, what is that?
Yeah, and it can be so many different things. Like, even from running and getting into, like, bike packing, I remember just feeling horrendous on a bike packing event. I was like, oh no, this is just like running when it's in the middle of the afternoon, it's super hot, and I'm just hot and I'm tired. I just need to chill for the next hour or two until it cools off, and I'll be fine again. And you can keep going. It's those experiences which you just got to go out and gain them, right? So
right.
I guess hopefully our job is to give those experiences to people that don't have them yet, and give them that confidence that they can go into it. learning from our mistakes, Richard.
Yeah, there's been plenty of those. We could add quite a list up there. But you're right. That's what training is about: is knowing what it feels like to do the distance, and knowing what it feels like to have those ups and downs, because you do ebb and flow. You do have good periods and bad periods, and if you're in a bad bit, well, let's just focus on our nutrition. Let's focus on our pacing. Let's focus on our posture, etc., and then we'll come good. And away we go.
I've seen plenty of people that just get they don't realize that, and they think it's the end of the world, and they drop. And you're like, you probably would have been fine in like 30-40 minutes had you just been able to push through that. So
100%. So just keep moving forward, one foot in front of the other. As long as you're taking steps forward, you are getting to the finish line, no matter how slow that is. So I guess that's a tip. But before we sort of carry on and have you signed up for that 50K Ultra, we better move on because this is getting dangerous too. Meg, our first guest of the evening. Meg, where is she? She's sitting in the back there. How you doing, Meg?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Have you been involved in this Crater Rim Ultra in the past? What's your background?
Yeah, it's funny hearing both of you talk because I think I was the classic example of having no idea what I was doing the last time I entered. So I did the 53K a couple of years ago now, and like I'm more of an adventurer than a racer. That's kind of my background. And so I absolutely blew out. I was like, yeah, I can run pretty quick up this hill. And then I think it must have been coming up. Is it the Bastard? Is that what people call it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Second hill, I just completely blew out. Got pretty dehydrated. It was quite a hot day. And just kind of suffered a lot.
That's a lot
I
of
was like,
suffering.
what am I doing? What is this about? So that was my last experience of doing the Crater Rim. Yeah.
And you've chosen that's not a good distance for you. You prefer one that's slightly shorter this time around. Or is that a conscious effort, or was actually what were your sort of considerations to put your toe on the start line of the 30K?
Well, yeah, last time, to be fair, I was that was maybe my first race I'd ever done. So there was a lot of learning at that moment in time. And I've done quite a lot more running since then. And so feeling a whole lot more prepared going into this race than I did into the last one. So I've jumped into the 30K this time on the way to the coast to coast in February. So I guess one of the big reasons for this race for me is it's a good training goal on the way to a couple of other things. So looking forward to doing a 30K. I haven't done anything of that length before. So
nice work. And that's pretty that's a motivation for a lot of people, is it's a nice spring thing and the stepping stone to other bigger things in terms of quite nicely timed. We're coming out the back end of winter, and it's far enough away still as we record this mid-August that we can still do some training and actually get there, but not so far away that like I'll do some training tomorrow.
Yeah, 100%. And I've actually taken on a coach this time, and I tell you what, having a coach has just been surprisingly one of the best things I've ever done. I told her right at the start, I don't really like being told what to do, but I paid someone to tell me what to do, and I've loved it. Like I just look at the piece of paper, tells me what to do, or look in Training Peaks and just do what it says on the paper. So it's been really nice to have some structure through winter. Makes those short days much easier to get off the couch and just go and do whatever it says. And as you say, it's that having those kind of steps along the way. And I think between the Crater Rim, really very much looking forward to doing that. And it's super cool to support an event that supports lots of local community groups as well. So with all the stuff that they do with the Port Hills conservation, and I also work for an organisation, Waipuna Trust. So we've been super fortunate. Some of our young people that come through programs there have been supported by some of the money that's given out to charity organisations in Christchurch before. So it's super cool to be able to do an event that's kind of giving out to that local community and supporting running in and around Ōtautahi. So it's cool.
How good. I was going to ask you what's your motivation for entering, but I think you've kind of answered that pretty well across the board in terms of that. But the coast to coast isn't the biggest thing. It's not the end of the road for you. You've got some other big jobs to train for as well. What else is going on for you?
Yeah, well, the coast to coast is kind of the next step on the training pathway towards the big journey, which was the kind of felt like a bit of an unwieldy beast. So my good friend Nat Gallant and I have been training for a while now. we did a couple of adventures over last summer, and we're like, man, running's pretty cool. What should we do next? We looked at New Zealand, and then we kind of started looking abroad and looked into Nepal. And found this big adventure, the Great Himalayan Trail, which is not like a one trail kind of thing. It's a bunch of trails that kind of exists across the Himalaya. So Nat and I are going to take March and April, about 8 weeks to head over there. And I feel like running feels like a bold statement to say, but it'll be moving as quickly as we can at altitude for 8 weeks.
Wow.
From kind of the east side of the country through the Himalaya to the west. And yeah, I think one of the just trust the process. Like the one thing we've heard from people that have been into that part of the country, into the world, is just have no expectations and have lots of hope. So, you know, our hopes are to journey across the Himalaya as far as we can push in that 8 weeks. So yeah, it's there's so many unknowns, and that's kind of the exciting, you know, that brings me back to that adventure piece. Is it's kind of my motivation of not knowing what it's going to feel like, and do all the research, and then, you know, get ourselves into some sort of adventure, and then figure it out as we go along. So
Good.
Yeah.
This got pretty big pretty quickly, didn't it? We created a ultra for a second, then all of a sudden we're running across the Himalayas for 8 weeks. Yeah, that's pretty full on.
I think it's quite similar. You could just substitute the word, you know, Himalaya for Port Hills, and it's pretty much the same, right? Yeah, like if you're doing the Crater Rim Ultra, you need to have no expectations and lots of hope, and
yeah,
pretty similar.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
There we go. How good is that? That's your quote of the day. Yeah, well done, well done. So you're doing some fundraising for this as well, Meg. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we are. So we have there's a pretty awesome organisation, the Himalayan Trust, and so that's lots of work from Sir Edmund Hillary, and his whānau continues to run that along with a lot of other amazing humans. So we've got this platform through the Himalayan Trust, and they do heaps of really good work. They've been doing it since Sir Ed was around, and still doing it, and all of their work's really in providing water supplies, education, and sort of medical care for people in the back blocks of Nepal. So yeah, if anyone is interested in just donating a little bit, it's not going to Nat and my trip. It's going 100% to the humans in the back blocks in Nepal. So yeah, any little couple of bucks would be greatly appreciated towards that. Be awesome. Thanks very much.
Yeah, and I've put the note on the bottom of the screen here, and we'll also put in the show notes as well if you're listening to this, to jump onto the Mountain Sisters Himalayan Trust page so you can help that out. And how is that going to be like? How are you going to donate that? Is there anything you're going to be doing while you're over there in regards to that, or is it actually just a donation to the Himalayan Trust? Is there any way that you're going to be involved in that while you're over there?
Yeah, so we've been talking to Alexander Hillary, or Alex Hillary, at the trust, and they're putting us in touch with some of the people in the Solar Khumbu area, so the kind of Khumbu, the Everest Base Campy general big area, and so we'll be able to connect in with some of the education facilities, and like that's where a couple of the really big pushes are happening at that with the Himalayan Trust at the moment. But yeah, again, that's a piece that we're just continuing to explore at the moment, to be honest. Yeah, trust the process.
Yes, that's right. And in terms of following your journey, obviously you guys are training for it, but actually following it while you're over there, there's still steps to do from that. But is there any Instagram, or what do you guys do in that space?
Yeah, so I'm completely new at Instagram. I've just learned that it's called a handle, the name thing, and so yeah, Nat's been teaching me as much as I know, and so have other people, mostly by laughing at my the faux pas that I make along the way. But we are at mountain_sisters_. So we've started posting a few things as they've been happening, and we'll continue to do that as we head towards Nepal, and while we're over there as much as we can too.
Good job. So back to the Crater Rim Ultra. How's the training going at the moment? How are the legs feeling? How are you going in the lead up?
Yeah, well, my legs are a bit sore today. I went and did the Paparoa on Saturday, which was flippin' epic, actually. I can't recommend that trip enough if you haven't run it. But they're feeling good. Like, I think that just having having a coach, like figuring out how to eat when I'm adventuring has been like a massive hurdle. The last time I did the coast to coast, I did I did it on like one croissant and like 600 mils of Coke or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
So it's been a massive, massive journey for me. But yeah, learning that stuff just means, yeah, it's crazy. But if you fuel your body while you're going, then you kind of can keep going. That's just feels like, you know, simple stuff, but it's really, really helped me with, yeah, my performance, I guess.
Good job.
So
Good job.
yeah, they're doing well.
Good. And it's a matter of figuring out what works for you, isn't it? It's not just a matter of this is what to do, but can you actually stomach that? How does it actually work for you? And I guess we'll find out a little bit more as Marewa comes on the show and talking a little bit more in depth around that nutrition stuff. But what are you most looking forward to in regards to the Crater Ultra for you?
Oh man, it's a local event. I just love seeing all the people out there doing the things, and having supported it last year with the team from Waipuna Trust. It was so lovely. So, I mean, we were stationed up at the Rapaki station. I don't know if you did it last year, but it was so windy and all the oranges were covered in so many pieces of grit. But what I loved about it was just the banter that we had with everybody. So I'm actually really looking forward to maybe not grit covered oranges, but just having banter with people as they come in and out of, yeah, it's the people, I think.
That's right. And that's what, as you mentioned, it's a community element of it. It's the fundraising that happens around that, and that aid station you guys are manning just brings another level of different people that are up there supporting, and even being on the top of the Port Hills is pretty amazing, isn't it?
Totally. And for that group of young people, that meant that we could head on a raft trip. So that bunch of young people that might not have had access to that, we went with the money we were given from the Crater Room. We were able to head on a raft trip down the Mawhera Nui, down the Grey for a couple of days. So it's just so cool to see, to be part of that, really. So
yeah, good stuff. Well done. Well, all the best with your training. All the best with your build up to the Crater Rim. All the best for giving out all those high fives on the way around, and all the best for your massive adventures you've got in a huge summer ahead of you.
Yeah, thank you, and yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been great. See you out
there. Well done, Meg. Good stuff. Well done. Okay, take care. We'll catch up soon.
Cool. Ka kite.
Cheers, Meg. See ya. Yeah, so good, Grant. It's pretty awesome to have someone like Meg on the show that is obviously doing the Crater Rim, but got some massive goals ahead of her as well. And do you remember that quote that she mentioned and you mentioned again? We need to just bring that out again.
Yeah. It was have no expectations, but lots of hope, I think. Was that what it was?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
I like that. Right. I like that a lot. But I feel pretty lazy, I have to say, after Meg telling us what she's done and what she's up to. So, it's awesome. Yeah.
Well, the goal is to try and get you to sign up for the 50 by the end of this podcast. So that's a good step. We've done well with our
I think it's sold out, man. Otherwise, yeah. Is there any room in the 6K?
I'm not sure. Well, maybe we've got Chris Pike, the race director, sitting in the back. Maybe we'll have a chat to him and see if he can sort of bend your arm. Chris, how are you getting on?
Good, thanks, Richard. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. How's everything going on the Crater Rim sort of organisation side of things? I see that you guys were up in the Port Hills and organised a bit of a come and check out the trails day on the weekend, and you had a huge crowd out there. How good?
This Sunday was probably one of the best days I've had out on the trails for a long time. That was just epic. We had 66 people turn up to go for a run around the Port Hills and see what is pretty much 90% of the course changes for this year.
Okay.
It was epic. Imagine running past someone in the hills and saying, "Yeah, there's about 65 people behind me, mate." You're passing, you're passing a bike or you're passing someone with the dog up there, and it's like, and they look at you like, "Yeah, you're joking." And then next minute, just trail of people coming through. I felt sorry for anyone coming past us on the trails at the weekend because they'd have a long time to wait.
How many people did you just have join you? Just like, oh well, it's too busy going that way, I better turn around and just come this way. And you ended up, did you start with 66 or did you get to 66 because you just added more and more people to your list?
No, so we started with 66 and we did end up with 67.
Okay.
They stayed with us for a while and then headed off. But then we had a couple of cyclists join us because they wanted to come and find out what was going on. So they'd seen us coming across the top to Summit Road. So they cycled on and they got to us and we give them a cheer like they were coming through a finish line. And then they were like, "We only came to see what you were doing." And they turned around and headed back down the hills again. So It was something to see. So if anyone wants to see it, jump on the social media and have a look at a couple of videos and photos. It's pretty epic seeing that many people. All on the Port Hills. And we've got another one on the 15th of September.
Were all these people entered, Chris, or were they people on the fence that are thinking about entering? Were they just, Crater Room curious?
It's a bit of a mix, Grant. It's a complete mix. There's a lot. I'd say it was like 70% with the hands up to say they were entered, and then you got a lot of shaky hands on the fence there. So but I've got a few emails through today, and now like that 70% is probably more like 85% people signed up. So
cool.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Because it's quite unique, I think. I'm trying to think. I mean, I know other races do it, but it's not super common that you can go out and check it out, a course like that, is it? So it's pretty cool. I mean, obviously being so urban, it kind of lends itself to it.
Yeah, and I think like it's not just checking out the trails, because we can check these trails out. If you live in Christchurch, you can check these trails out, at the weekend. I think it's just that connection and community of going and running with a lot of other people that are have got a similar mindset and are out for the day to achieve the same thing, and just go out into the hills, get active, and have a bit of fun. It's like I say, it was probably the best day on the trails for me for a long time. So that was awesome.
Good stuff, Chris. And well done to you for helping to facilitate that and getting those groups involved, and people together and meeting each other and having a bit of banter. So that's awesome. Any updates in regards to the event at all that we need to think about?
We're only 9 to 10 weeks out, which is pretty scary, but also pretty awesome that we're going to get there. So everyone that's on this big build up to create a rim, we're going to get there. 9 to 10 weeks. There's a lot of. You've just added 2 more jobs to my list as well, which is oranges with grit on for Meg. Sorry, at the aid station, and also try and find Grant a spot in the 53K somewhere. So
it's all filled up, I heard. So.
We'll just have to sort of wedge one in there. I'm sure we can maybe come up with something. Yep.
But yeah, like you say, Grant, the 53K is currently sold out, and we've got a wait list operating, which is just absolutely. I think that's another awesome.
How many people
to have that? So that's 180 people is sold out. So that's 100. We will have 180 people stood on the start line in Diamond Harbour with the wait list we've got. It's going to be that'll be the biggest start I think we've ever had. For the
are you guys capping that with logistics as far as getting over to the start line and busing and ferries? Is that kind of why you've got that cap there?
It is. That's perfect. Yeah, it's the ferry cap that we've got. But I am just having a few talks. So yeah, let's there's lots of exciting things coming, and that could also be.
You
on
could
the
add
list.
a multi-sport option to it.
Paddle across.
People paddle across. Yeah, you can bump those numbers up, man.
Yeah, I just think we've just signed Grant off. If you can put a paddle in there.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Do you want to borrow a kayak, Grant, or have you got one?
I'm pretty good. I don't think I'd make it to the start line.
I think you prefer swimming. I've heard.
Kayak. Yeah.
Nice, Grant. I think this is getting out of hand. Anything else to add there, Chris?
No, just keep your eyes on the social media for all the updates coming through, and keep an eye on your inboxes for the newsletters if you signed up for the newsletters. Like I say, lots of exciting news in the next 9 to 10 weeks. It's going to be pretty epic out there. So yeah, can't wait to see everyone get down the start line.
Perfect. Hey, well done, Chris. Thanks for all the great work that you do and bringing that community together, and lots of good stuff to come up. And one last thing, have you got any more group runs that people could get involved with prior to racing?
Sorry, Richard. Our next group run is on the 15th of September. And there's 2 options there. So there's a 12.5K, and that's starting at the Wables Farm at the 30K start line, and we're going to make our way back to the Sign of the Kiwi. Now, for those that want to get a bit more Ks under the feet, we will turn back around and go back to Wables Farm. And then we can pick the cars up. So yeah, that's on the 15th of September. Again, keep your eyes on the social media. There'll be any updates there for that one.
Yeah, good stuff. Awesome. Keep up the great work and we'll be in touch. Cheers, Chris.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks, heaps. See ya. Grant, step 2, you got through that and you haven't entered yet, or haven't put your name on that wait list just yet.
Yep, I'm holding strong, man. Holding strong.
Well done. No, that's awesome. What a great community, and pretty cool, as you mentioned. Like it's we can go run these trails at any day of the week, basically, can't we? But people are going there because they want to meet other people and have an adventure together, and that social element.
And I think it probably comes back to what we touched on earlier about experience and like how much you've done, and whether it's your first race or it was first ultra, first trail race, or whether you're more experienced. Like I would assume, and I could be totally wrong, but there'd be a lot of people that are maybe just getting into trail running, or just it's going to be their first 50K, and this is a great opportunity to check it out. Especially, I remember when I first started trail running. I probably would have started 10 years earlier had I been able to get into it. But I was like, how do you start this trail running thing? And it's a long time ago now, but just having that community and being able to get out there with some like-minded people and make those connections, like you say. And yeah, I definitely, the athletes that I've been coaching for the Crater Rim, that is in their Training Peaks diary as a, let's line up a long run and line up, it's put in there as a note, as a suggestion that, hey, if you're going to run this on Sunday or your long run on the weekend, get along to those, because why wouldn't you? You'd be crazy not to, I think. Getting along and seeing it with like-minded people, and having Chris there, giving that feedback, especially on Sunday with the new changes to the course. So
100%. That's good. Nice work. Hey, we're going to keep rocketing through this podcast. Marewa is in the back, pretty keen to have a chat nutrition. So, I guess training nutrition is a big part of training, and then for recovering from training. So basically, if we want to think about how the quality of your sessions, how are you recovering? How do you repair that muscle damage from the downhill, etc., and make sure that you can get back on your feet and do the next training session, but also be useful at work and all those things that go around, and be still be able to concentrate and have some energy for the family, etc. So we're keen to have a chat to Marewa. So let's see if we can bring her on. Marewa, how are you getting on? Oops, we don't have any sound there, Marewa. We're double check though. We're looks like muted. We might have to go and check the settings to make sure that the right microphone's being used. So I'm going to drop you out there, and we'll come back to you in a moment as tech support's helping out. And Marewa, if you're listening, maybe do the old turn on and turn off again. Sometimes that works well as well. The other element of what we're going to chat about is some training. Shall we maybe just jump into that, Grant, and have a bit of a discussion of that? One question that Chris mentioned earlier, just before kicking off, is we've got these training plans that are being sold through the Crater Rim Ultra, and one of the questions was, what do I do if I get in and start the training plan now, because there's all this training that's gone on beforehand? And I guess that is a challenge. We're 8 to 10 weeks away. We're kind of sort of almost in the crux of our actual training. So I guess number one, it depends on your training history, and depends on your injury history and how your body's feeling. But there's nothing saying that you can't just sort of pick it up and actually run with it from that stage. The key thing that you'll need to do is listen to your body. It might mean that you actually need a bit more recovery. Every week there is a couple of must-do sessions and some good-to-do and bonus sessions along there as well. So it actually might mean that you just cross the bonus session off and not do so much sort of consistent volume, etc., as a way forward, and just making sure you actually recover from those big ones, because ultimately what any training plan is about is simulating what race day is going to be, so you can test your nutrition, test your pacing, and make sure that you're feeling confident come race day. Another part of the old getting ready for race day is injury and sickness, and there's a bit of that going around at the moment as well. Grant, any sort of comments or thoughts around that in regards to training?
Yeah, I think, and I've had a few athletes that have been a bit run down and not 100%. And I think, number one, you just got to be kind to yourself, right? Like, because it happens. And if you're injured or you're sick, there's not much you can do about it. I think, if you're unwell and you can't go, you just need to, ease your way back into it. Less is more in that scenario. I think not rushing back into it. Not pushing it. And what I'm saying to, say if someone's got an injury, it's like, okay, well, you're injured, you can't run, but what could you focus on? Can you do planks, or can you do push-ups? Can you focus on eating really well and really clean? Because it's easier to be really good with nutrition when you're not training hard, right? Because when you're training hard, you just want to eat all the cookies, but when you're injured, okay, you're not using as much, maybe you can back off. And the same with sleep, maybe take that extra opportunity to get some really good sleep and really good recovery, because whether you're injured or you're sick, you're unwell, that's going to help you feel better. Good nutrition, good sleep. So those are things that you can control, right? And then it's just easing your way back into it and not pushing it too hard. And then hopefully, you can lose 2 weeks of training, right? And not lose a massive amount of fitness. So in theory, you could have a week off with sickness and more or less jump straight back into your training program without stressing about having lost fitness.
And that's where from a coach perspective comes in as well, just to make sure that people are stepping back into it, not necessarily where they did left off. It actually just ease back into it for a week or so can be really useful. So one thing, I think one issue that I come up with again and again is that a lot of people that we work with are ultimately too optimistic. Oh no, I'll be right in 2 or 3 days, but actually we know that you're going to take a week or two to come right. And if you try to get back into 2 or 3 days, then it's just going to prolong the fact that you're not going to be well for as quick. So actually sometimes be a little bit more cynical, and that's okay. And I think one of the other things I talk about is rest hard and rest early. So try like although it's tempting, I'm all right, I'll carry on. But actually, if you just took a little bit of time off as you're starting to feel a little bit on edge, well, then that will probably, maybe with a good sleep and some decent food, then you might get on top of it before it actually gets on top of you. So that'll be the other sort of key thing as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice. We're gonna jump back in and see if Marewa was there. We're gonna have a chat around training intensity as a key piece, just to finish the show up. But we're gonna push the go button and see if we've got some sound this time, Marewa.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Well done. Good work on the tech support there. Hey, how are you getting on, Marewa?
Yeah, good. Yep, I've just nipped in from a game of tennis, so.
Oh, good job. That's very, very wintry to be playing tennis this time of year.
Oh, I know. I think Wimbledon's got me inspired, and I've suddenly thought, like, if I really dedicate my life to this, might be a new sporting opportunity out there for me.
Okay, and the Olympics, has that helped as well? Just to go, I could probably do that.
That's bringing up a whole range of new sporting opportunities, to be honest. We've all got 4 years to get sorted for the next one. So
That's right. It's so dangerous.
Breakdancing.
I know.
2028.
There's potential for anyone, hey? So very cool. I'm looking forward to getting some sleep back tonight.
Yeah, it's a bit of a sigh of relief, isn't it, to be able to actually go, right, let's get back to sort of a bit more normal. I want to talk to you about sort of pre-race nutrition, some training nutrition, and then a bit of recovery nutrition as a whole, and then thinking about breaking each piece down. So let's start off with pre-race nutrition, or pre-training nutrition, could be called the same thing. So first of all, why is it important, and when might it not be so important based on the time of the day, length, intensity of the training session, etc.?
Yeah, so when it comes to training nutrition, I think it's really important to have perspective of how long the sessions are. So ideally, I say to people, you want to use your long training sessions to replicate and figure out what works for you on those race days. So come race day, you've kind of nutted it all out using your training sessions. Although I think it's really important, before what you were saying, looking after yourself around your training, it's really important to make sure you've got those good habits in place to support the smaller training sessions as well, because nutrition during the sessions might not be as important. However, if you're not fueled well throughout the day, you're not rested, you're not hydrated, then you're not going to get what you need out of those trainings. So you're more likely to be obviously injured, or fatigue comes into play. So I'm on a podcast. My 4-year-old just walked in. She's meant to be in bed. Go find Dad, Bella. So I think it's important to use the long training sessions to really figure out work backwards from your goal plan and work out what works for you. So when you come to race day, there's no surprises, you know what you're doing. And I think it's also quite important for those long sessions, depending on what race you're entering, there's a bit of a flexible start time. So I see the first race starts at 7:15, the Crater Rim, and then we've got 9:15, 9:30, and then 10:30 or 10:15. So try and mimic what you're doing on race day. So try and maybe start some of your long runs then to see how you're going with that pre-fueling and really kind of work out what you can do for race day.
That's right, because those starts are almost late starts, aren't they? By the time you get to 9 and 10:30, and rather than out the door and I'm running already, whereas 7 o'clock, depending, because there's a bit of travel to get to the start line, would make a difference as well. So what can you sort of what snacks and things that you could take on the way? So what are some examples of some pre-run food options that you would recommend for people?
I think when it comes to pre-run, there's two things. There's race day and then there's just your regular training. And I think, as I've just been going on about, you need to use your long trainings to figure out what works for you on race day. So that's a really good opportunity to practice your pre-race meals. So there are things you want to get down maybe 3 to 4 hours before you start race day. And I think with those later starts, it's actually quite achievable, whereas most races start so early in the day that you can't actually feasibly get stuff down that early. And I always say go for something that's comforting. The rules are you want it high carb, low fiber, low fat, low protein. So that's your breads with your sweet spreads, things that are really easy, not really fruity or super filling, but I always think it's what works for you, because when it comes to race day, nerves play a massive part in that digestion of the food that you do choose. So choose something that you love, whether it's bagels, McDonald's, hash browns, something that you just feel like is filling but will keep you fueled and not too hard to get down as well. And then in terms of a snack, probably 1 to 2 hours before, you can chip away maybe on your hydration, so you're getting in some electrolytes, some last minute carbs and hydration, and then you can take a wee snack with you for an hour before, and then on the maybe 15 minutes before you start, you can go a handful of lollies or something like a gel, just to get that last minute top up as well.
And the great thing about those that pre-race snack is that you may have half of it, you may not have it at all, you may have all of it, sort of thing. So that's a bit of a how you feel, how that digestion's going, how the nerves are. How did breakfast actually go? What time of the day that you're kicking off?
Yeah. Do you stick to the same breakfast or do you mix it up? What do you go for?
On race day, I'm pretty generally stick to the same sort of thing. What about you, Grant?
I used to just be like eggs. I'd always have like an omelette. It's like every morning pretty much, and race day, but I've actually started having like oats, like porridge, before races now. I don't know why. I guess it seems like the whole low carb thing is not really, a thing. It's more like carbs. And having done some like longer bike races, like on like a higher carb diet, because like I kind of didn't do a lot of races for 3 or 4 years, and I feel like I've kind of come back to it, and it's like, oh, it's very much a high carb thing, and I feel a lot better off of that. I wish I could go back and eat all the carbs during like 100-mile races. I think I would have done a lot better. So I've kind of gone to porridge on like a race day now, like something more carb one.
Nice. And that's quite a common one, the porridge, with you can put your brown sugar or your cream in. And I wouldn't necessarily say on paper that ticks the boxes. Like, it is high fiber, which we meant to say avoid. But it's also quite filling, and people tend to maybe nice and easy to get down.
Yeah, I tend to go for a muesli, yogurt, and some fruit is often what I'll go for. But again, probably reasonably high fiber. But again, it sort of depends on what you're starting, what time of the day it is as well.
Yeah.
So, nice work. Training, like actual race nutrition. What are some of the things that I should be thinking about there in terms of what's important? I guess length of the session, intensity, and things as well. Some of the factors. What are your thoughts there, and maybe some examples?
Yeah, I think when it comes to trail running, nutrition's quite a special part of it, because obviously these distances are quite long, they're quite drawn out, and the course is undulating, so there's lots of uphills, there's lots of downhills. Speed is also very variable. Some people go through these races like they just chip away at it, take the whole day to get through, and then there's the other end of the field that's rocketing through as well. So when it comes to nutrition, there are so many different strategies. So it's kind of finding out what works for you personally, and again, planning for it on race day so that come race day, there's no surprises and you're kind of just rolling out what works for you. So, I mean, it could be a lot of real food. It could be no real food. It could be all supplements, and it could be a mix of both. I think the key thing is making the most of the easy sections of the race. So maybe whether that's the downhills or the less technical parts of the course, to really top up the fuel then, and also starting early each hour. So start 15, 20 minutes in and start fueling evenly over each hour. So you're spreading your nutrition out and breaking it up into small, easy parts to get down. Same goes with hydration, really. So it's kind of like, it can be quite complex, but I think it's such a personal thing with these types of events that it's tricky to kind of give exact recommendations.
Yeah, because it's something that needs to be practiced and played with. What about amount of carbohydrates? So what should we be? Is there a guideline for what we should be aiming for in regards to carbohydrates per hour? Obviously, there's a point where these, like the 6K, would probably almost hardly need anything, maybe a little bit of a drink. Yeah. But especially when we're getting down the other end of the field, that the 30 and 50, people are going to be out there for a significant length of time. How many carbohydrates should people be sort of trying to aim for in that space?
Yeah, so anything over that sort of 1.5, 2 hour mark, you're probably looking at starting for these ultra type events at that 60 grams per hour, and that would be the absolute lowest end. And I'd say that's for those people that are just cruising all day, happy to chip away at it. But some athletes will be going upwards of 90 grams per hour, mixing their sources so they're not all from the same type of carbohydrate, so that your body's able to absorb the different types in relation to each other. And again, it's making sure that it's spread out evenly, and you don't just suddenly get to hour 3 and suddenly go, oh shit, I need a massive amount this hour. You do it from the start so that your body is functioning at that level, and we're trying to keep it at that level rather than dropping down and trying to get back up, because that's really unattainable when it comes to running, I think.
Yeah, nice. So what does 90 grams look like? Or do we say 75 as the middle of the road? What does that look like? Is that, what, 3 gels?
Gels 25 grams, yeah.
Yep. Bananas, that's 25?
Yep. A banana, that's every hour. So that's like one of those items every 20 minutes, which can add up quite a lot. And I think you would mix it up, so you wouldn't just go probably 3 gels, but depends what kind of sports drink you're running as well. There's aid stations for Crater Rim, so I had a wee research of that. So for different events are at different stages, but for the ultra, the 53K, they start at 20Ks, and there's 20K, 30K, 40K, 43, 53. And I think it's a good idea to have a look where these are on the map. I printed it out so that you can kind of see where you are, and you can probably mark where they are.
Cool.
Those aid stations will have water, pure electrolytes, flat Coke, lollies, pineapple or watermelon, subject to availability, oranges and bananas and chips. So that's a really good spread as well to have. And again, it's working out the preferences that work for you. Obviously, some of these races will take hours and hours and hours, so you might want some real food in there to help break up the supplements. It just kind of, depends. I heard you say before it's quite cool that this track's in the backyard for those that live locally. So I think that's we're really lucky you can actually go and train on the course and get used to what, is there. So use that as a trial run to actually try and eating different things or,
Yeah, that's right. I like your point around the aid stations, and I think one part of sport nutrition is about variety, and sometimes you're not actually going to know what you feel like either. So just using the aid stations is a bit of a smorgasbord, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and also, as you've mentioned, having a bit of an understanding about, okay, well, half a banana is worth about this many carbohydrates, so you've got, okay, right, I'm going to have that, and that's going to sort of tick that box for myself as well. So doing a bit of learning around that. Also really like that you've printed that page out of what where the aid stations are, so then you can actually have a bit of a plan about how I'm going to approach this and how I'm going to pace myself through it, but what's my nutrition going to be as it unfolds.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like some of them, there'll be quite a bit of uphill between those 10K, so they'll be probably harder than other sections of the course. So, you know, we always say don't completely rely on aid stations, but it's a good opportunity to see what's listed on the aid stations and maybe have a practice and training using those things. As you said, don't be afraid to read the labels of the things you want to use, like the bars, figure out how many carbs per serve, cut it up into little bite-sized pieces. One option is you could make little glad bags of the different choices for each hour or the different carb amount, so that, you know, it can be as basic as getting through one bag every hour. So, you know, you can make it as easy or as complicated as you want, really.
And as I mentioned that about knowing how much a banana is, like one of the key things is actually really hard to think and do maths when you're doing these things, isn't it? So if you can make it super simple, that's less likely of things to go wrong. What are some other things that could go wrong that you've sort of seen people make mistakes around nutrition for race day?
Yeah, I think it would be, the biggest one would be once you get that fatigued state, you can feel dehydrated, you can feel dizzy, like even nauseous, and you can not want to eat. I guess, you know, when you're on your way to hitting the wall, essentially, it can kind of go downwards quite quickly, and that makes it really hard to come back from. So that's why we really stress to start early and spread it out evenly, because once your body starts rejecting your nutrition, it's so bloody hard to come back from that, and then you can't really perform either, so it's kind of game over a little bit. Plan for longer. Often you think it might take X amount, but it could take a lot longer. I always say don't rely on aid stations. I think you get to know the events that have good supplies, but it depending on where you come through, sometimes the options might be out. And also flavour fatigue. It is important to know your favourite flavours, but maybe if you can have options as well.
I think that's great. What about recovery nutrition? That is a big part, especially for training. On race day, you'd like, I'm just going to lie down on the ground and give me an ice cream, whatever, or a drink of beer. But where does recovery come into it? When is it important? When might it not be quite so important from your perspective? And maybe some examples.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Those long runs are where it's super important. Not only recovery actually starts in race or in exercise nutrition. So even in training, you need to be really teaching yourself to fuel properly through these longer sessions. So anything over an hour, you do need to put back in. And not only will you get more out of that session and more adaptation, but also you're on the front foot with the recovery. So, you know, that's where real food can be really good as well. If you can train your body to accept your nutrition, you're not always relying on the supplements. You might want to save those for the longer sessions or practicing your race day nutrition. But, you know, when you're training for an event like this, you are doing a lot of Ks and a lot of time out there. So if you can start fueling correctly on any training session you do, you're going to be so much further ahead of the game when it comes to race day. So in terms of post-exercise, we obviously want to fuel as quickly as we can when we stop. I'd say within half an hour or within an hour, you want to hit that 25 grams of protein, carbs. You want to replace the hydration, electrolytes. You've got to think about where you're going to finish your training. If you're going to finish it up in the hills, you need to pre-plan what you're going to have at the end, maybe in your car waiting, because that gap of waiting to get home, again, will put you on the back foot. Whereas if you're finishing your training at home, it's a little bit easier just to go to the kitchen and find some recovery food. I think recovery is a little bit, it's forgotten about. People finish their session and carry on with their life, but you actually need to spread it out all day. So that's making sure you have that 25 grams of protein in every snack and every meal at least over the day, so that your body's getting that support to help that injury prevention and just help, I guess, pushing forward with your training. And then sleep is another massive one. So what do they say, 7 to 9 hours? But you know, if you're out there doing massive Ks every week, then you probably do realistically need 8 or 9 hours sleep. And if you can't fit that into your life, it's amazing how something does have to give at some point. So now that the Olympics is finished, there's no excuse for not hitting those numbers.
Absolutely.
And also hydration.
Yeah, good stuff. Pure Sport Nutrition, you guys are involved in the Crater Room and supporting the event. How are you guys involved and what are you guys doing come race day?
Oh, trick question. We're at the aid stations.
Okay. And what do you? So have a look on your list here. What are you coming up with?
We've got our electrolyte hydration at the aid stations.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's all I have in front of me. That to be honest, I'm not across if we're doing anything else for the event or whether we're activating. But hearing you chat before makes me actually want to give it a go, because I think being on on our doorstep, I think I'm always too scared to go running up in the hills, not through safety, but through me just purely getting lost because I don't know where the hell I'm going. Like I can literally do like Rapaki and that's it. So it was quite inspiring here that you can go and do some group runs and, learn some new routes and meet some friends and stuff. So
yeah, how good. That's awesome. So that's fantastic. I'm not sure if there's a 50K. We're trying to work on that for Grant, but maybe there'd be a 30K.
You can have mine.
No, thanks.
You can have my
No.
50K entry.
No, I'm all good.
Yeah, you'll know
It's
that.
not mine to give away, to be fair.
Did you say 10 weeks till race day?
10 weeks to race day, I think that's what it was. That's what Chris, the race director, I think he's nodding in the background. 10 weeks to race day as we record this right at the moment. Yep, he's nodding.
Yeah, you can
there we go.
make that happen.
All over that, Marewa.
Hey, Marewa, I was curious, 2 questions around nutrition. One, I think, it was said earlier, it can be really hot, being kind of later October. And I remember it too, getting kind of caught out almost with it being like one of the first hot days of summer. I wouldn't call it necessarily hot, but we're coming out of winter and sometimes, you can get a really hot day. And I know I've been caught out before. I've also, seen it in horrendous weather as well. But I guess one, how would you would you change things if it is hotter or you're finding it hotter? And then the other thing around timing of nutrition, is your preference to fuel when you're going uphill? Maybe you're moving a little bit slower, or would you fuel when you're going downhill when it's easier? Because sometimes you can be working harder going uphill, and that's harder for your body to digest it, or going downhill, your stomach might be bouncing around and things don't sit well. So there are my 2 questions that I had around timing and heat.
Yeah, Richard actually might be better for that second one. So for the heat is a really good one, and I think such a valid one for October. So what I would say is it's just super important in the days before to really focus on your hydration, because hydration is one of the key things to preventing that cramp, and that includes replacing electrolytes. You can load up on electrolytes pre-race, so that's including lots of salt in your meals. You can also take salt capsules the night before you race, the morning of your race. I would take extra salt capsules always if I did any ultra type endurance activity. And that's purely just so that you can be ahead of the game, or sometimes come race day, you actually feel a bit off, or you can feel like you're just struggling a little bit. So I'd have those that they weigh nothing. There's no harm in taking them with you. But again, it's teaching yourself to drink the amounts you need. Often it's a little bit hard with the hydro packs, because people don't actually know how much they're getting through. So that's another thing. You can use the aid stations to make sure you're getting through your hydration in between the different aid stations. So a lot of people skimp on hydration because they don't want to carry it, but when you start dehydrating, the loss in performance is it just goes up so quickly that it's actually worth the wait just to take it with you in the first place.
Yep.
I think when it comes to taking on nutrition, Richard, you'll probably have an opinion on this, but it's absolutely personal preference. Like, it can be quite technical going downhill, which can be a bit of a barrier to taking on nutrition. I personally can't take it uphill because I'm always puffing too much, which might be a sign of my training status. So I don't know, maybe along the top. Is there a top?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I feel like I've read articles, and like one article would be like, don't eat it, don't fuel going uphill because you're working so hard, your stomach can't absorb it, or and then I don't know, a month later I'll read another article and it's like, don't fuel downhill because your stomach's bouncing around and you won't be able to handle it. It's like, well, where do you fuel? Like, there's nowhere to fuel. Like, so it's I was just curious, but it sounds like it is just personal, and I guess like what you're saying earlier, just testing and seeing what works for people.
I think ultimately it's about getting it in one way or another, isn't it? That's the first thing. If it's in your body, you're better off having it. There's no point carrying it in your backpack or in your soft flask, where you might as well carry it in your stomach, so at least it can have the opportunity to get absorbed. So, and you're going to carry that weight anyway. But I think it's probably, the answer is it depends on how you're running as well. Like if you're bombing on the downhill and trying to go as fast as you possibly can, it's probably not a great time to take on too much nutrition, other than like a sip of a drink thing. But trying to open a gel could be a bit challenging. Whereas, I think cresting the top of a hill can often be quite a good time, or you've actually got hands spare potentially on the uphill. So, I think you're right. It's just a matter of practicing it and seeing what works for you, and depending on how you're getting your nutrition on board as well. But I think the other point you made was your the camelback bladder, the hydration bladder can be challenging to see what you're actually up to. So sussing out how long it's going to take for you to get between aid stations and soft flasks are really good, because you can actually see how much you've had, and therefore that can help plan for a hot day versus a cold day. And that was a great question, Grant, because I know there's been a number of proper hot crater rim days, and people have been wilting up there. And
and not even necessarily hot, but maybe it's like
right.
18 or 20 degrees, and you've spent all winter training in 5 degrees. Especially if you're one of those people that trains before work. And I mean, last week before, in the morning it was really cold. So it's not even that it's hot; it's just that big temperature
relative
change that you're not used to, and it seems to. I'm terrible in the heat, so I always get caught out around that time of year, I feel like. So yeah,
I think it's just a great test of how well you look after yourself, doesn't it? When it gets hot, therefore it's more of a, not so much a test of fitness or strength. It actually becomes a test of nutrition and hydration more so, which is part of the puzzle of how you get to the finish line to the best of your ability.
Yeah. And I definitely would argue that you can train your stomach to accept your hydration or whatever at any point going up or down. So the problem is, if you hold off, like say going up, you hold off, then you've got to make up for that for the whatever the rest of the hour is. So that's when you get caught out a little bit. So I guess
it comes back to
nutrition.
And experimenting and training in the long runs, like you said earlier, just using those long runs as your training, everything, gear, the shoes you're going to wear, the pacing, the nutrition, it all, it's all pretty critical.
And as we said before, like, a massive fan of using real food and not relying on supplements. But come race day, if you're wanting to really use those, then you need to use them on your long training so that you know that they work for you and what type. Like, not all supplements are equal. There's fluid gels, there's thicker gels, there's pros and cons to both of them. Some people like chews, because you can put them in their mouth and just hold them there. There's all these different ways to kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together, which is quite cool. So use what works for you. Try all the options till you find something, and don't just because that's the best thing about nutrition. It can't be cool. Like, if someone uses something, it either works for you or it doesn't. So there's no fashionable nutrition. So.
Yes. Yeah, that's so good. Awesome, Marewa. Hey, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for your energy, enthusiasm. And I look forward to potentially seeing you out on the start line come October time. Did I just sign up for that? I was going to go to Wimbledon, and now all of a sudden you're running a blooming ultra. Whoops, I've just dropped out of maybe that's just in time before we got ourselves into trouble. Grant, did you take anything out of that for you?
Yeah. I mean, there's loads there. There's, the practicing nutrition, and the funny one, I mean, I've practiced, I've had been training for a 100-mile race, and I've practiced, I've used the nutrition, I've done it all, I'm like, sweet, nutrition's dialed. And then race day, I get an hour in, and it's like, I don't want that. Like, my bag's full of that, like whatever it was, bars or gels. And it's like, I don't want those today. It's the last thing I want.
That's right.
And it's just like, what am I going to do for the next, 24 hours, the next 150K? Like, what am I going to eat? Because that thing in my backpack, that nutrition that I trained on, it's just not sitting today for whatever reason. And there was a race in France. I ate a lot of salami at the aid stations that day. It was horrible. But I had to go to real food and try and work through it. And it's so I think it's just being adaptable and having a your ideal nutrition, but being prepared that you may not be hitting your ideal, and that could be for anything, right? It could be your pace, your the your time splits, any of that. It's being adaptable, especially in those longer races. I think it's all about who can adapt the best, is often who is the most successful.
That's right. And that comes back to experience and having played with it in your training, as you mentioned. That's right. Nice one. So yeah, that's so good. So we've had a chat to Meg. She was fired up in regards to the 30. Going to go and have a crack at that. We've chatted to Marewa around nutrition and got a good understanding about that as well. One last thing we just want to touch on before we head away is I mentioned about training intensity being a really key thing around your training as we sort of head towards race day, and thinking about how hard should I be running and should I be measuring that. I think just a couple of quick points on that, and maybe you could add to this as well, Grant. First of all, how hard is hard and how hard is easy as a first point. So doing some testing is really important in regards to figuring that one out, and actually retesting yourself. Like we do a time trial across 20 minutes and trying to figure out your training zones using a heart rate monitor can be really useful. So having a play with that is really interesting. So then actually this run I need to sit at this intensity, which is steady. I should be able to hold a conversation. I should be able to know that I'm puffing a bit, but I can sustain it through to the point of making sure that we do some faster, harder sessions as well. It's not all just long and slow. So I can actually challenge my fitness and my body's ability to deliver oxygen and actually get up and down some hills. So I guess some testing is one thing, and then actually making sure that you do know what those thresholds are, and then also understanding what is hard and what is easy, and making sure that we dial that into those training plans as well.
Yeah. Getting that mix right, that special sauce, getting it right is the tricky thing, and it can be different for everyone depending on what their goals are and how much time they've got available to train, and like there's the 80-20 rule. We've talked about you're doing a lot of zone 2 and less maybe intense days, but when they are the intensity is up, it's really up. But if your training volume is relatively low, you don't have that much, well, you might be better to do a lot higher percentage of hard efforts, depending on how much training you've got. But that only works if you've got a good base and lots of experience. Like you can't just jump straight into that. You're just going to blow the doors off and get injured. So there's so many variables there, isn't there?
There is, and just as I started to talk about that, that's what I was basically thinking. I was like, I'm getting down a rabbit hole here, because that's where it becomes so individualized, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's hard to we can't give guidance across the board, but yeah, I guess if you're
I find it tricky when I'm coaching with people and I've really hey, you've got to give me feedback on this. You've got to let me know how you're doing, because I'm not there. Like, I don't know how, I'm not your heart rate. So I can't tell you, I'm not your watch, I don't know how those trainings are going exactly, so it's relying on that feedback for us to give that good advice. I guess.
Yeah, that's right. And that's where there's the science of it. What is the heart rate? What are your pace zones? How are you going across that? And then it's also the subjective feedback of how that actually felt on a particular day, because one day it might feel easy, one day it might feel hard, and there's lots of different variables of the reasons why that could be as we go. But as long as we're ultimately
I've lost you, Richard. I can't hear you. You've muted yourself.
How about that?
That's way better.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I was just
sure everything you just said was amazing.
It was probably amazing. That's right. We're probably cooked, I think. Grant, is there anything else to wrap up before we head away?
No, not really. I mean, 19 weeks to go before Crater Rim. So I hope everyone's training's going well. Hopefully people are getting out on the hills, getting those, technical trails underfoot. and getting amped, getting the miles up, and looking after themselves.
Good job. Good job. So if you need a hand, if you need any advice, just feel free to sing out. Always happy to share, and look after yourself. Enjoy the adventures, and we'll look forward to seeing you on race day.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks,
Cheers,
Richard.
team.